Hi everyone, this is Kevin from the Climb and Flow podcast, and this is the ninth podcast interview we're doing. In today's episode, we interview Kyra Condie. She's an Olympian climber. She's a competitive climber, uh, very strong, and lots of subjects we talked about. We talked about her back injury and how she's got an extremely strong mindset to get back into climbing and defy what some people have said that she wouldn't be able to get back into climbing. We talk about the fear of falling. We talk about her mindset in competition climbing and many more subjects. So I hope you guys enjoy. So how are you?
I'm good. What about you?
Yeah, good, thanks. Yeah,
Yeah.
all good. Yeah, it's what time's over there?
9:15. It's early for me. I've been sleeping in ever since daylight savings time. I feel like I have not been able to get up before 10, so this was good for me.
Okay, cool, cool. So how's your training going?
It's going good. I just like finished the competitions that qualified me for World Cups this year, so that's exciting and taking a little bit of a restish week after the comp, mostly because of skin, not because of
Okay,
psych.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
But
So what does your training week look like?
let's see. My This week was like different because it's immediately post comp, but I tend to usually climb 2 days on, 1 day off,
Okay.
and usually for longer sessions. I used to always do double sessions, and I don't know, being older, I've switched to not doing double
Older.
sessions as
I mean,
much.
come on.
I've got all these youth kids here in Salt Lake. Everybody's 18, and I'm a decade older than you. That's crazy.
Yeah. Well, I've got an extra few years on you, Kira.
Oh, it's actually Kyra. Sorry, I should have told you
Sorry,
that.
Kyra, I
Yeah, yeah,
apologize.
no worries. Everybody gets it wrong.
Yeah, yeah, cool.
But
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, I've got how many years I've got? How old are you? 20,
I'm 28.
28, man. God, 28. That's when I had my first child.
Really?
Yeah,
My mom was 24, and so I keep joking with her that I'm like, I would have had a 4-year-old by now.
I know. Yeah,
She's like, I
yeah.
was too young.
Man, I think at 28, I thought I was grown up. I mean, at 18, I thought I was grown up. And then
Yeah.
now I look back and think, oh my God, I was actually completely not. I still haven't grown up, but I wasn't grown up then.
Yeah, the secret is that you just learn how much you don't know as you get older, I think.
Yes,
At
yeah,
at
yeah,
18,
yeah,
you
yeah,
think you know everything, and then it just goes downhill from there. It's like, oh man, I don't know so much.
yeah. So how much time have I got with you today?
I have no time limit, so we're
Cool,
chilling. Yeah.
cool, awesome. Yeah, and feel free to ask me questions, and I'll try and answer them if I can.
Cool.
So I've got some notes here, so I'll be looking off screen. So you're a competition climber. You're an Olympian, which is pretty cool. You do a lot of social media stuff. You run your own podcast, and
Hmm.
you just recently started a YouTube channel.
Yes.
And you
Uh,
train.
yes.
Wow, sounds busy.
Yeah. Yeah, it's been an exciting, I feel like, time for trying to, venture into other things. I think, climbing can only take so much of your time. And so even though it's a full-time job in a sense,
Yeah,
I was looking for other ventures and, ways to diversify my income sources and, create better value as a athlete. So yeah, that's kind of where the podcast and then later the YouTube came from. The podcast actually was because I didn't know how to video edit, and I was like, well, this is something that I can do and produce myself.
yeah,
Uh, and then the YouTube has just been it's been fun to try and figure out. Actually, it's been taking a lot of my rest hours is fiddling with video editing software and trying to figure
yeah,
out and troubleshoot that.
yeah, yeah. I'm still trying to get a hang of it. It's quite tricky.
Yeah, there's so many like shortcuts and buttons and like I was doing things like the ultra slow way the first couple times and then I learned a couple shortcuts and I was like, "Oh my God, this would have saved me 10 hours if I had known
Yeah.
this like a day ago."
So what
So,
platform are you using?
I'm using Premiere Pro, which I figured, that's the fancy one that they use for a lot of, high level video stuff. So, might as well learn on that one. And it's way more capable than something like iMovie, which is what my other experience had been in. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Cool. Cool. So, first question, how did you get into climbing?
I got into climbing at a birthday party, actually. I feel like a lot of climbers my age got into climbing this way. I
Yeah.
went to the gym when I think I was in fifth grade, I want to say, and
So, how old were you in fifth grade?
uh, 9 or 10.
Okay.
And that was like my first like real exposure where I remember going to a climbing gym. Like I had been to climbing gyms when I was littler than that, but never consistently. And the guy who was leading the birthday party was just like I think I told my mom he was annoyingly impressed with me. I
Okay.
guess I was a pretty confident little kid, but so he kept being like, "Oh, you should get on this one, or you should get on this one," and then afterwards told me that there was a team at the gym that I could join if I wanted to. And so I joined that team, and then I actually was really into musical theater at the time. So I then quit the team once I auditioned for a musical and got into it, and the rehearsals like conflicted with it. And then I think maybe 2 years later is when I like really came back to climbing, and that's when I started, or maybe a year later. So I was 11 when I really started climbing for the first time and staying consistently on team, and stopped doing musicals because it's too hard to do both.
Yeah. So obviously, somebody saw something in you, and saw, I guess, a natural inclination or ability.
Yeah, and I think I was the type of kid who was always climbing trees, always on top of stuff in our house. Like, my mom would yell to get down from things, instead of, like I wasn't a very anxious kid, I don't think so. I really think it was a natural progression to end up as a climber, but yeah.
Yeah, I think a lot of kids like the idea of, I don't know, climbing trees. I think, and just hanging and doing and getting on swings and stuff.
Yeah. I was always
Yeah.
competitive on the monkey bars, so, like trying to do it as many times back and forth and stuff, things like that. So,
So you're quite competitive personality then.
yeah, I think I definitely was as a kid, but I just never found like the sport that stuck really.
Okay.
I think I tried soccer or football if you're a UK guy.
Yeah.
And then I tried gymnastics, which is really good. I didn't get into gymnastics because I would have been terrible. A few other things. I did like some track and field in elementary school, but yeah, just none of them stuck.
Okay. Yeah. So have you got any brothers and sisters?
I have an older brother, but his thing is actually music. He's extremely talented in basically all things music. He has perfect pitch. And so we would come back from movies when we were kids, and he would just play the soundtrack after like not looking at any music. He would just remember it from watching the movie. So yeah, his thing has always been more on the music side. He's really athletic as well, but never really pursued it in the same way. So it's kind of nice that we had very different, like diverging interests in that way.
Okay, but you never felt like you had to compete with him when you were younger as a kid.
Only in piano lessons, which I
Okay.
stopped once
Yeah.
I started playing the flute actually in fifth grade also, and so then our musical ventures were even separate, so that was nice.
Yeah. Cool. So, so when did you start? When did you start competing? I guess you got into climbing when you were 9 or 10, 11. Sorry, 11.
Yeah, when I really started getting into it, I was 11, and then when I joined the team, actually, they were getting ready for the youth regional championships, which I hadn't qualified for, so I couldn't go to. But basically, right when I joined, I was aware that competitions existed,
Yeah.
and this was, of course, however many years ago, 17 years ago, and so there was not as much knowledge that climbing competitions existed as there is now, by a long shot. And so I think I was lucky that it was like immediately introduced, and I was like, oh, I want to do that. And so then when the next season came around, I just tried to qualify, and I actually ended up going to nationals that first year, as like a kid, and kids
At
are
the age of 12.
11 or 12. Yeah, I don't quite
Wow.
remember. It was 2009. So
Okay. So what did that feel like as a 12-year-old to go and compete?
I feel like I've never been like a super intimidated person. I think it's really easy to be in a new space and be like super intimidated. And I think for some reason, especially as a kid, that just like never occurred to me to be that way.
Yeah.
And so I think I was just mostly quite excited. I was pretty nervous. The main thing I remember is that it was really hot and I didn't have any like short sleeve shirts. So I had to borrow my cousin's. But yeah, that was the main thing. I was like fully unprepared. We had no idea what we were getting ourselves into.
Okay. Yeah. And then you just kept competing.
Yeah, basically. It was like kind of
Yeah.
addicting after that.
Yeah. And then I guess, and then I think you quite openly talked about what was it? Back you had some back surgery done in 2010.
Yeah, I had severe idiopathic adolescent scoliosis. So fancy way
Big
of saying,
mouthful.
saying that my spine was curved and they didn't know why, and it happened to me later, like when I was during my growth spurt.
Okay.
So we found it really late, which normally you diagnose scoliosis when it's pretty mild and you can manage it in a number of different ways with PT or with a brace or something like that. But I found mine when it was already like well past the point of needing surgery. And so I didn't actually even need to wear a brace, which was a kind of blessing in disguise if I just needed to get surgery anyway. Like wearing a brace is pretty miserable if you're an active kid, like basically putting them in a plastic corset, like, 18 hours a day is not a very
Yeah.
enjoyable.
Of course not. You're gonna get the Mickey taken out of you as a child, right?
That too. Yeah. You're also in middle school. So, wearing a,
That's not
it's
really
not,
great in the formative years.
yeah. So there are a number of reasons why kids don't like it, but so I was lucky in that sense that I didn't actually have to wear a brace, which is pretty rare for people who have gotten the scoliosis surgery. Most people find it early, try to brace it, it doesn't work, and then they end up getting surgery. But I found mine when it was already like 50 odd degrees, and I'm going to sneeze. Sorry.
Jeez.
Thank you. Yeah, we found mine when it was already at 50 odd degrees, and then got the call that we needed to go talk to surgeons, talk to 3 different surgeons, and got a couple different opinions. Oh my gosh, sorry.
Bless you.
Um, got a couple different opinions, and they kind of disagreed. The first one told me that I wouldn't be able to climb, basically, again, and that it's fine because climbing wouldn't be that important to me once I had a family, and I was like, 12 at that time. So that didn't sit very well with me, obviously.
Yeah, of course
And
not.
yeah, and he was from like a really renowned hospital, so it's just so frustrating that there are doctors who can like, tell that and try and
That's a
break
bit of a
it.
sexist remark, right?
Yeah, right? And like just break a
Yeah.
kid's dream, I don't know. And so we found a different doctor. Luckily, my parents listened to me and didn't like that aspect of him either. They liked how good the hospital was, but
Yeah.
there's actually quite a few really good hospitals in Minnesota where I'm from. So we went to a different hospital, and that doctor was awesome. He was South African. He did all the tests. So the other doctor, a nurse, had done all the tests. Like they watch you walk, they have you bend over, they have you and like measure the degree difference of your spine and the height difference in your 2 shoulders. And in this doctor, he did all those tests instead of like his nurse, which I just appreciated as far as somebody who was involved. And he told me I could get back to climbing after 4 months and that it wouldn't hold me back and all these things. So he was really important, I feel like, in my journey. And he also was going to fuse less vertebrae because the surgery you get to fix scoliosis is a fusion. So they take all the bones that are in the curve, basically, in your back and turn them into one bone.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what they did with the vertebrae in your back.
Yeah, exactly. So like T2 through 12, so that's 10 of mine. And that's basically from like the base of your neck to like the bottom of it's like right above your hips is like one bone for me.
Bloody hell. I mean, that's nuts, right? I think, yeah, that seems like crazy.
Yeah. I feel like when I was a kid, I used to try and, be like, oh no, it doesn't bother me at all. Like I don't even notice it. And I think that was maybe a coping mechanism that left me with some bad habits for sure. Because I definitely do notice it quite a bit doing a lot of things.
Okay.
But I think it has helped me in ways like it kept me really psyched on climbing because it took climbing away from me and it made me realize how much I loved it. It also, I think, has helped me develop the style of climbing that I'm good at. I really like straightforward, hard, like moves that you have to be stronger to be able to do instead of, get funkier. I really like just having to be stronger. And I think all of that comes from like not really being able to get into funky positions and things like that. And so, and they hurt less.
Yeah, and I guess you've got to work harder, right? You've got to work harder than somebody who's able to, I guess, bend their back.
Yeah, I think in a lot of ways. But, everybody has like something, like whether it's that you're shorter or taller or whatever. The one thing that's annoying about this one is that it never like is an advantage. Like being tall can like hurt you sometimes, but then it can be an advantage other times. You could reach past a crux sequence or something. But I've had a few people try and ask me if like, oh, is there anything that it like helps with? I'm like body tension. I'm like, I don't think so. I don't think so.
Yeah, I mean, I guess not understanding like body mechanics, but understand that might be a big disadvantage, and I guess that's telling me I guess you're quite a driven personality, quite focused, quite mentally strong to go through that and to do what you do.
Yeah, I think something I've said before is that I think everybody has like a superpower if they've gotten to like a high level in sport, especially. Everybody has like some sort of superpower that has gotten them there. And for some people that's resilience, for some people that's just pure try hard, for some people that's talent, really inherent understanding of body movement, something. Like everybody has some sort of superpower. And I think mine honestly is like a positive attitude in a lot of ways. Like, there's not much that I'm like, I don't get that sad if I fall or can't do a boulder or something. But the one exception to that, which I've called a kryptonite because, superpower, is when it is because of my back, because that's just the times that I feel like I really enjoy the process of getting better at something. And, if I'm bad at something, that just means I can get better at it. But with my back, it feels like something I can't really get better at. I can't gain any flexibility in that area of my spine. There's like nothing I can do about it. It's like trying to bend your arm in the middle of your, like between your wrist and your elbow, right? Like there's just nothing I can do about it. That would be, and trying to do that is honestly just so frustrating if you just stared at your arm for, hours a day trying to make it bend where you're like all 9 radius are. You just wouldn't do it, and it would be really frustrating. And so I think that was like my kryptonite for a long time, but I've gotten better at learning when I'm just trying to bend the middle of my arm and when it's something that I like actually can do. And that's really helped.
Yeah. Okay. So you're having to think of creative ways to get around, I guess, certain problems.
Problems. Definitely. I think I definitely have to be creative. And sometimes when you watch somebody else do something, it takes away that creativity, because I'll watch somebody, bend or twist in a way that I know I can't. And I'll just immediately be like, oh, well, I can't do that. So like, I shouldn't try that boulder. But really what I should do is be like, okay, I'm not going to do that boulder that way. Like, how else can I do it? I mean, similar to watching somebody who's way taller than you, like reach a move that you can't reach. If I just watch that climber and be like, oh, well, that's the only way to do that, there's no way I can do it. That's not that helpful. But if I see them do that and be like, okay, that's a way to not do that boulder for me. Like, how else can I do it? And like, maybe there's a method and maybe there's not. Like, sometimes that's the only method. There's only one foot and one handhold, and that's the only way to get there. But only when you're closed-minded is it really hard to come up with those.
That takes a lot of self-awareness, right? For you to, I guess, look at someone and then immediately think, right, they do what they do because they have full mobility, and to then be aware of, I can't do that, to actually thinking, well, how can I do that? Because I think a lot of us in society, we compare ourselves to everybody else, right? And we can't help ourselves.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. And I sound like I've like totally got this mastered, and that's just definitely not true. It's something I've been working on like especially since moving to Salt Lake City and training for the Tokyo Olympics. I like really confronted this because the style of bouldering in competitions changed a lot. And before that, I really hadn't felt like my back changed my results that much in competitions. But then those couple years, like I thought it really changed my results. Like without my back, I think it would have been a totally different situation. So that was like when I really had to confront it for the first time. And so it's still pretty fresh. I'm still learning and figuring it out. It's only been like 5 years of really confronting it and trying to figure out like what system works. And honestly, yeah, the system that's worked the best has been like knowing that there are some moves that will come up that are harder for me. But, you know, in a competition, you only have 5 minutes to try it. And so trying to stay positive and curious and during that 5 minutes is really important.
Yeah. And I guess it's just, I guess it's accepting that, but I think you spend, like when it comes to like my head game in climbing, I've spent, how long have I spent on it? Since I've become aware of it, I've probably spent the last 15 years working on it. I'm still working on it.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's a never-ending battle, I think.
Yeah, of course it is. I guess it's the same in climbing, isn't it? Like the improvements that we may see in climbing takes like a lifetime to work on it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you were saying too the comparison thing. I was trying to remember the saying that I've heard, and it's comparison is the thief of joy.
Yes.
And I think that's such a great way to explain it. Like even comparing to like your current self to your past self, like, you know, immediately after back surgery, if you know, I had been climbing and then had to take 4 months off and now had a completely new body basically.
Yep.
If I was comparing to myself pre-surgery, like that wasn't going to be helpful. It was going to be the thief of my joy. So I think it's true even comparing yourself to yourself, or you know.
Yeah, and I mean, where does that come from, right? Does that like we go to school and we go we get compared to like everybody else in the classroom. We like it happens in society, it happens at work, like at home. Our parents are possibly comparing us to our siblings. So we kind of go through life and we just can't help ourselves.
Yeah, that's totally true.
Yeah, and it's like you say, it's not very helpful. Yeah,
it's easier said than done for sure.
Completely, yeah. But again, it's building that self-awareness, isn't it? Mm-hmm. It's kind of coming to that point where you think, right, after every performance or every session or every attempt is to kind of analyze and think, well, what went well and what didn't go well, even like head game stuff as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I've worked with a sports psych quite a bit. Not currently working with one, but I feel like I learned a lot of tactics for head game, especially that applied to competition in the gym, outside, in life. Like it's been really, it was really helpful.
Yeah. The thing is, I find, I think as climbers, we find it really easy to work on our technique. We find it really easy to work on strength stuff. But when it comes to head game stuff, a lot of us find it hard to kind of accept that we have to work on that. And I feel that when you work on your head game, you can see more gains than you can in technique and strength. Yeah.
I think it's easy to like not feel the gains like as quickly. Like, you know, and if you're campusing or trying hard board climbs, you can really see progression. Or if you're weightlifting, especially, you know, you can deadlift this amount and now the next day you can deadlift two kilograms more, like whatever. But, you know, head game stuff, I think doesn't have that same like instant gratification that I think a lot of athletes like and strive for. And that's like what keeps us coming back. And so I feel like that's partially why it's harder to work on than a lot of other things.
Yeah.
But you're right. It absolutely is necessary and helps a lot.
Yeah. If you can climb without your head being involved and you can give it 100% every time, obviously if your body is physically able to, then you will outperform a lot of people, I think.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And you'll just get stronger naturally.
Mm-hmm. I mean, you can even see it when like the strongest people have a competition or a day without like with bad head game. You can usually see it on somebody's like performance or their face, you know, and you can see how much different their performance is usually.
Yeah. Have you ever watched the documentary on Netflix on the famous tennis players?
Oh, the like series.
Yeah, I think Netflix is a series. I can't remember what it's
Yeah,
called.
yeah, yeah. I did not watch it, but I heard good things about it.
Yeah, you should watch it. What I've derived from it was that you get all these high performance athletes. If you were to take the head game away, like the competition between the two would be marginal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tennis is interesting too because it has such big personalities. I feel like uh, everything I
Yeah.
see about tennis is people throwing fits and stuff on the court.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool. So, are you a boulderer or a route climber at heart?
I definitely am a boulderer at heart,
Okay.
but you're asking that at an interesting time because I feel
Why?
like currently lead competitions are more inspiring to me for
Okay.
like starting next year because I qualified for the bouldering competitions again this year, but I think for the future I'm really thinking I'm gonna switch to being more of a lead climber, but still training primarily bouldering and bouldering outside. But I just
Okay.
think that those go hand in hand a little better than.
Okay. So why? I guess did you get into bouldering and what attracted you to that and why the change to route climbing?
Yeah. Well, I've always competed in both and done both. I've always been scared of lead like a little bit. Like I definitely don't have my best head game on lead still to this day. It's better when I'm doing it more.
Okay.
But back when I was a youth climber, the gym I started at and everybody who climbed there was a boulderer, and we had this like fairly before its time training wall that was called B2 Bouldering Cave 2, and it was a 45-degree wall into a 60-degree wall, and it was I don't know 10 meters across, and it was super legendary as far as like a training space goes. Like that was like kind of unheard
Wow.
of at that time. Yeah, it was amazing. Like I would love to be able to climb on those angles all the time now still.
Yeah.
And so that wall obviously then generated really strong psyched climbers. And so we had
Yeah.
like a fairly core crew in Minnesota who was all, bouldering and bouldering identity and were good setters and would set hard boulders. I wasn't quite in that crew because I was 11 and they were, 24
Yeah.
or more.
Yeah.
But so I was probably more annoying than anything else. But but that was definitely part of like my exposure to climbing culture, and
Yeah.
definitely how I then self-identified. I think was being like an overhung boulder climber.
Yeah. I guess that's why you got so super strong, right?
Yeah, I think that's a huge reason. And I also just I think tend towards like power and power endurance. Like those are two of my bigger strengths in climbing, and that just lends itself to bouldering really nicely. But I what I love about lead is that you rarely end a bouldering session just like exhausted. Like you'll end it like your fingers are really tired and maybe your big muscles, but you rest primarily during a bouldering session. Like you can only give
Yeah.
so many goes to give like max effort. But after a lead session, you are like so gassed you can't even hold on to jugs anymore. Usually, if you're
Yeah.
like really training endurance, and I think that feeling's so fun. So I really love training lead, but I feel like I haven't tried to reach my potential in lead the same way I have tried in bouldering, and I still want to keep doing that in bouldering. But for
And what?
competitions, at least, I think I'm
Okay.
excited
Yeah.
about trying to push that limit for lead because I haven't really
Yeah.
done that before.
Okay. So you like the idea of being physically exhausted?
Yeah, I feel like it's fun.
Yeah.
especially in lead. Like I hate running and like kind of things like that, but I really enjoy the feeling of getting pumped and trying hard and on lead.
Yeah. 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 Like I'm a route climber at heart, and I think I've gone the other way. So I'm a route climber at heart, and had to try and convince myself to go bouldering because I know it's good for me and I know it gets me stronger.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. So, but what I like about lead is the I don't have you don't have a get out clause. You're attached to a rope and you got to climb, and it's not like for me bouldering. I can just let go and I end up on the mat.
Yeah.
With lead climbing, I feel that there's more pressure to just keep going.
That's
And
interesting. I feel like I end up because I'm scared on lead often.
yeah,
I find I can usually try harder doing like circuits on a bouldering wall because I'll sometimes get to a clip and not be able to clip or something, and then even though I could do more moves because I can't clip, I'm like, and then end up letting go or something.
Okay.
Or cheating, grabbing the draw, clipping.
Yeah.
But on a bouldering wall without that like fear factor, I feel like I end up trying harder. So that's funny that like
Okay.
the same reason
But
is
the other
like,
way around.
yeah, but the other way around, I guess.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So what do you feel? I guess what do you feel affects you in like lead climbing?
Um, I don't know. I wish I knew. I feel like as a youth climber, I think I had coaches who were really good at getting me psyched on climbing, but definitely a little problematic in other ways. One of them
Okay.
was, they tried to do different drills with us when we were scared of lead. That just made me way more scared of lead instead of fixing my fear of lead climbing. So instead of,
Okay.
you know, trying to get over something gradually, it was just like thrown in the deep end of, okay, nobody's allowed to take anymore. You're not allowed to grab draws. You're not allowed to. So if you say take, we're going to give you more slack type thing,
Oh no.
and I think all of that like just made me hunker down and be more stubborn about being scared almost. And it made me
Yeah.
really
Okay.
good at down climbing because if they wouldn't
Yeah.
take, I got really good at down climbing. So
Yeah.
I think it taught me some bad habits. And then, but honestly, I think it's just as like I get freaked out that of like unreasonable things like the rope's going to break or the draw is going to come out of the wall, like that type of thing. I think
Yeah.
my back also adds in a little bit of extra fear, just like on the chance that I do deck, which I've never decked. Like, taking a ground fall. I
So why
don't,
would you pick?
just like in case I did, it happens, like even in the
Yeah.
gym or whatever. I think it would be harder for me to like walk away totally unscathed with my back because it doesn't compress in the same way as somebody with like all their vertebrae. So I think there's like an extra like realistic fear in there, but most of it's fairly unreasonable for sure.
Okay. So, but if
Yeah,
you fell normally on a rope without hitting the floor, and you just fell into the harness,
totally
that's
fine.
fine. That's totally
Yeah,
fine for back.
yeah,
Okay.
just irrational fear for sure.
Where it's so like if you start to describe a fear as irrational, you start to associate a feeling of shame with it.
Oh yeah, true. Yeah,
Yes, so it's not irrational, it's just normal, right? Like how normal is it for us human beings to climb a wall and then to fall off? That's not normal.
yeah,
Yeah.
true. Especially like
Yeah.
60 feet off the deck or something.
Yeah, and then so we have to like find ways to desensitize ourselves to falling, but I think having had some really bad experiences with some coaches, that sounds awful.
Yeah, I think that definitely didn't help. And then also just like outdoor lead, I just haven't been that exposed. Like both exposure as far as like having big gaps between draws and stuff. So I haven't
Yeah.
had the like reassurance that you are fine when you fall like really far, just because I haven't
Yeah.
really done it. And so I think
Yeah.
what I really need to do is some like exposure therapy of like, get 3 feet above the draw, drop, get 4 feet above the draw, drop,
Yeah.
which I just haven't done, which is what I wish I had done as a kid, but just haven't really done. So
As a kid, but yeah, I guess if these coaches didn't do what they did, I guess you wouldn't be living with, I guess that like what I would describe that kind of those negative associations and like almost like a form of trauma, right?
yeah, I think that's probably true. I think I was definitely prone to being scared of lead to begin with, and I think it's important to talk about because, like you said, there's that shame associated with it as being like irrational and unreasonable, and
Yeah.
a ton of people just assume pro climbers don't get scared ever, like on
Yeah.
bouldering or lead climbing, and like I've seen everybody I know get scared. Like I just saw somebody climb V16 and get scared on the top out. Like because it
Yeah.
is scary. It's like you said, it's like an inherently like visceral feeling that
Yeah.
we should have as humans. So
Of
being
course,
ashamed
it's
of it
survival,
only,
isn't it?
yeah,
Yeah,
only
and
creates
it's just
problems.
yeah, we need to we need to find a way that works for us to desensitize ourselves and get comfortable with it. And I get if you carry like negative associations and trauma like you have, that takes more work.
Totally.
And then that's down to you as an individual. How where do you start? How often do you need to practice? And yeah, like if I tell you about my experience, is that like in my 20s, I think, I had a bad belayer who dropped me from on an indoor wall. Didn't drop me on the floor, but dropped me from about 14 to 16 meters high to 2 meters above the floor. 3 times.
Oh my gosh.
Not in the same session, 3 times over the space of like a couple of months.
Mm-hmm.
And the third time it happened, like the first time I kind of shrugged it off. I thought it was just like an incident. Second time it happened, I became aware that shouldn't happen.
Mm-hmm.
So I would never go for moves, and I'd always be looking down at this guy, whether he was paying attention. And the third time it happened, I just like, it took me 2 years of working on my head game 3 times a week, like constantly, and to try and figure out what actually works.
Yeah.
And still to this day, like it's better, but there's still some scenarios where I've got to work on, or if I'm not lead climbing consistently. Like for example, I've just had a winter season teaching ice climbing and winter climbing and stuff, and sometimes I do fall off, but not consistently like I do in sport climbing. So the first thing I've got to do is I've got to take loads of falls.
Really?
Yeah.
In ice climbing, I've heard that you're not supposed to fall ice climbing or something. Is what someone told me.
That's what they tell you. Yeah.
Crazy.
So, yeah. I mean, yeah. Sometimes.
But that makes sense. I feel like it is good to work on that. Like each season. Yeah, I feel like when I haven't lead climbed in a while, I'm actually going to lead climb today, and I haven't done it in a while. I was training some endurance, but I haven't been on a rope in a long time. And any time that it's been a while, I definitely get way more spooked than I do if I'm doing it consistently.
So can I make some suggestions?
Sure, yeah.
So I think what a lot of people try to do with fall practice is they start too far ahead than where they should be starting. So start somewhere where there is no stress involved. So go up, make the first 6 clips, come down, so that you're on a top rope really, and start taking falls there, and just gradually just do that at the start of your session. Like we warm up physically, why not warm up our kind of minds right at the start of the session, and then you'll feel your mind's warmed up and you feel more comfortable with it, and it just takes consistency.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. I think one thing that's helped me too is that like on-sighting with where my head game's at right now is just not a good idea. I think like venturing into the unknown, like not knowing whether or not I'll have a good clipping hold or all these things is just really hard, especially then if you add on like pump on top of that. And so I mean, I'm hoping to obviously get over this because I'd like to try and give some good on-sights and flash goes eventually. But I went to the Red River Gorge like 2 years ago now. Yeah. And I was just like, you know what? I'm not even going to try to on-site. I'll try and do this second go so that I can like go draw to draw, know the holds, know the clipping positions, know I'm not going to die. And then like reassure myself. So kind of unlike taking falls, because like I still don't like taking falls, I think is part of the problem, which I think your suggestion would be really helpful with. It's like not having unknown factors anymore. So like now I know all the factors. So then I don't get as scared venturing upward when I know what the next section is going to be. Yeah.
So like I understand that you've got some negative feelings with it, but like if you have the motivation and you would want to work on it, don't avoid it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's
honestly.
true.
But because if you start avoiding it, then it becomes such a big thing in your head anyway. It becomes way bigger every time you go. Every time you go, you've got this little voice in your head going, I want to do it. I'm not going to do it. I want to do it, but I'm not going to do it. And every time it just gets worse and worse.
Yeah, absolutely. No, you're totally right.
And it's just start somewhere easy, right? And you don't have to take 10-meter whippers. You can start with like super small things and just get used to that. And it's supposed to be fun. Like climbing is meant to be fun.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Not meant to be that stressful. So what do you like about competing?
That's a good question. I've been asking myself this question recently, and I I think I like having a goal. So like I like having an event to like look forward to.
Yeah.
I enjoy the challenge of it. I think there's yeah, it's interesting because I've talked to a bunch of other people who I like compete with, and they just like love doing mock competitions and doing like all these like practice rounds and stuff. And I hate doing these practice rounds. I don't know why. I think I have a really hard time unlocking that like true competition mindset unless I'm in a competition. And
Okay.
I think I enjoy that feeling of like pure try hard focus and even frustration in those situations that you get in a competition and you get nowhere else. Like I think even projecting hard outside, you don't have that time limit. You don't have like even on like a short trip, like the boulder's still going to be there. And in competitions, It's like if you don't go to a competition, there's like 5 boulders you didn't get to try. Like, and then even in a competition, if you don't do a boulder, it's taken down by that night so that the next round can be set. And I think there's something kind of fun and exciting about that.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's just like, you have to perform kind of on the day, which is exciting, but also kind of exhausting. So like I had a hard time like really articulating, I think, what excites me about them, but I do really enjoy them.
I guess you like that extra element of pressure.
Yeah, I think so. I think it brings out the best in you sometimes and the worst in you other times, and trying to learn how to control that so that you get it so that it's always bringing out the best in you is cool and exciting. And then I just love training. I think I really love getting stronger, like I mentioned, and that gives me a reason to want to do that outside of just like wanting to myself. Yeah.
Yeah. There's a theory out there where talking about, I guess, pressure and kind of, I guess, arousal in the moment, where you've got 3 different athletes. You've got athlete A, B, and C, and athlete A performs best with a small amount of arousal, like athlete B, medium amount, and athlete C with a greater amount. And I guess you like more pressure to focus you more in the moment.
Yeah, I feel like I've also heard about something kind of similar with like how much you need to like hype yourself up for a competition. Like I'm like a pretty excitable person already. And so usually I need to calm myself down because I'm already like too hyped when I'm in that competition environment. Hyped not necessarily meaning excited. It just means like, high heart rate, like ultra focused, like you're saying. And so usually I'm actually listening to music that calms me down rather than, hardcore EDM that's like, hyping me up or like rap or something, because I need to chill out. But I do know people who are like too calm and then they need to like hype themselves up with different music, caffeine, whatever, in order to get to the right level of arousal like you're talking about. Something I talked to my sports psych about because she had this like bell curve basically, and it was like, where do you need to be excitement level, as far as like body excitement level in order to compete at your best.
Yeah.
And then where are you naturally? Like, are you naturally a 9 out of 10 and that you need to be at a 6 out of 10? And then it actually changes between, and this really came up before Tokyo, where we were doing 3 different disciplines, bouldering, lead, and speed. And you have to be at a different level for all 3 of those disciplines. Like lead, you don't want to be at a 10 out of 10. You're going to shake yourself off the wall from jitters, right?
Yeah.
But bouldering, you maybe do want to be like more at like a 7, 8 out of 10. And then speed, like honestly, 10 out of 10 is great. You just got to go as fast as you can, right? So trying to figure out what level you needed for each discipline and how to switch between them quickly, and was like a really interesting topic with my sports psych.
I like that. Yeah. I guess if I'm too hyped up, which I have been for like climbing long routes, I spend too much energy low down.
Yep, exactly.
And super tired high up.
And there are ways you can fix that, like before even getting on the wall. Like if you're a chatty person like me, trying not to be super chatty with people like right before getting on the wall, because like otherwise you're like on the ground, you're already hyped and excited and whatever, and then you get on the wall and you're still carrying that with you, right? And so for lead competitions, I had to like stop being so chatty in between rounds, and would like have to go sit and like put headphones in, listen to an audiobook, whatever, just chill for a little bit, because my instinct is to want to go talk to people, but it was making me like more tired and too hyped to when I got on the wall, and then I would make mistakes low down.
Yeah, yeah, okay, yeah, yeah. No, I've got a routine that I repeat every time that I go climbing or bouldering. I think like if it's route climbing, I tend to, I guess, try and calm myself down, do the same routine, and I do the same routine in bouldering, but do a different type of breathing to get me a bit more excited.
Yeah, I think that's exactly what I'm talking about for sure. It's cool
Yeah,
you just do that. The
yeah,
my sports psych told me there is like three different techniques you can use. Like one is breathing, like you just said.
yeah.
I might be forgetting one too. And then another one's music,
Visualization.
obviously.
Yeah,
And then another one
music's
is,
great.
yeah, and then caffeine.
Yeah,
Like, you can,
caffeine. Yeah,
yeah. So like as far as like an artificial method to get more hyped, caffeine's like
yeah,
an
yeah,
obvious
yeah.
one that like
I think
is
I'd
like,
have a heart attack.
yeah, I can't. Before a competition, I actually can't drink any caffeine. I'm way too, like I said, I'm too excitable already. And if that brings me up to, that'll
Yeah,
bring me up to like a 12. Out of
yeah,
10.
yeah, 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 yeah. Might work for speed climbing, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Um, so as a competition climber, you compete a lot. I guess it's competition season. You train a lot outside of that. Do you ever get to a point where you kind of do too much? Kind of burn,
Um,
get rid of your psyche?
I think my training psych is almost always like I was talking about superpowers. I think another one of my superpowers is that my psych to train is always like super super high. Um, One of my downfalls in that same realm is that it's not always super high to train the things I don't want to train. And so I think the thing I get burnt out of is like actually like the competition style bouldering. Like I said, the gym I grew up in, it's just like, 45-degree, 60-degree, pure climbing, pure walls, like barely even any volumes on those walls.
Yeah,
And
proper climbing.
so I think it's just not what I love. The swinging around, jumping, slab climbing, is just not what like where my heart lies. And so, but I
Yeah,
really love competition. So like I have this love of competitions that I have a hard time balancing with my true love of board climbing.
yeah.
um,
And do you feel that
that's
that's
kind
where
of hard.
competitions are going?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think we're gonna see a swing back a little bit to more old school style, I believe and hope. but
Yeah,
um, but yeah, that's been a hard thing to reconcile between the two of them. Of I love these competitions, but I also love this style of climbing that I don't get to do in competitions. Um,
yeah.
but I don't think I actually answered your question in that.
So, do you ever like feel that you lose your psyche
Yeah,
from like the amount of training you do and the amount of competing you do?
yeah, I definitely burnt myself out on practicing comp boulders on my lead up to Tokyo because especially it was going to be the first Olympics. We knew that there was going to be funky, like new school boulders,
Yeah,
and I'm a boulderer primarily, and so that was where like a lot of my focus was, and it was just like banging my head against the wall trying to get better at moves that like honestly I just couldn't get better at with my back and stuff, and that
yeah,
definitely burnt me out, and I think I had the wrong strategy leading into that where instead of focusing on the things that I was good at and just being like really freaking good at those. I
yeah,
focused so much on these moves I couldn't do that were like stopping me, and then they were being stoppers at World Cups, and then I was worried they were going to show up at the Olympics. And like there's nothing I could do to control what boulders I was going to get at the Olympics or not. But I think I totally ruined my mental space, especially on those boulders, so that when they did show up at the Olympics, it was like really disappointing in the moment because I was like, oh, I've tried this boulder, I know I can't do this, like and it had this negative reinforcement. So
yeah,
that was when I think I've been the closest to being burnt out, but it wasn't on climbing in general. It was on that specific style. And I think it's honestly taken me like 4 years and counting still to like want to get back on those styles. And I still have like I don't want to call it PTSD. I think that's a little melodramatic, but
but it's what you feel, isn't it? If that's what you feel, that's what you feel.
yeah. But yeah,
Yeah,
so that's like a little too intense to describe the feelings I have towards
yeah,
it, but
yeah,
it's the best word I can think of or like way I can think of to describe it. Of like, I have this like visceral reaction of not wanting to work on those, just because
yeah,
I'd spent so much time on them, and honestly, I think I still have a lot of the gains that I got from practicing those so much
yeah,
but now because I haven't done them as much, I'm not as burnt out. And so, like I said, when at the Olympics, I turned around and saw this boulder that I had this feeling I knew I couldn't do because I had tried it a bunch in training. Now when I turn around and see that, I'm like, oh, maybe it'll go this time. I haven't tried this in a while. So it has this like more positive twist on it. And I actually have a better chance of doing it now, having not practiced it, but having practiced it in the past, because I don't have those bad habit mental thoughts that go along with it that tell me that I can't do it. Because I'm like, oh, maybe it'll work this time. Maybe this one's different. Like, haven't tried this in a while. Like, but I have my tactics.
Hence your positive like look on it.
Yeah, and I think taking that little step back from it has really helped with that. And honestly, like I said, given me a better chance of doing it.
Yeah, but how do you know that you can't do something if you haven't tried it?
Exactly, right? So,
I see it a lot, right? We make like I see a lot of climbers kind of, especially climbing, which has got numbers attached to it, like grades attached to it. I see a lot of people kind of going, well, that climbing is at this grade. I'm not that kind of grade of climber, so I'm not going to be able to do that. And then when you take that number away and you manage to coax people onto that grade, they perform way better than they thought they would. And that's me included, right?
Yeah, no, it's totally true. I did that to my friend the other day. I was like, here, try this climb on the like kilter board. Didn't tell her it was, V7 versus V5. And she did it second try or something, but she was only trying V5s the rest of the session. So it's totally true.
Yeah. Cool. So how do you get your sight back? You got your sight back by not training.
Mostly by focusing on the stuff that I loved. Like I was spending so much time working on things that I didn't love. And so when I came back from the Olympics, I actually was really excited about rope climbing when I got back from Tokyo. And I think it was because it was so different than comp style bouldering that I did a ton of lead climbing, and it was fun. And like I said, you get that feeling of like trying hard and working hard. So I was doing a lot of like doubles and triples on lead routes just because it felt good at the time. And then moonboarding. So to polar opposite of comp bouldering basically. And then I leaned into that for like a year probably. And now my approach to like World Cups this year is very much so like focusing on the things that I'm good at. So like if a boulder that's my style comes up, like even if it's really hard, I'll do it. And I still have like a good chance of doing the ones that are not my style because I'm not so burnt out on that style.
Yeah. Okay. Wow, that's a incredible amount of self-awareness there.
Yeah, and who knows? It maybe also like would benefit me to. I'm sure it would benefit me to hop on those boulders more if I could somehow switch my attitude towards them. But I think right now this is definitely the best, for me.
Yeah, cool. You want to stay psyched, right? So
exactly, yeah.
Do what you enjoy. Yeah, and occasionally work on something you don't want to.
Exactly. When I'm having a good mental day.
Yeah. How do you mentally prepare for like competitions?
Let's see. Like the week leading up, I think is all about feeling as strong and confident as possible. So I know some people who try to get on the things that they're bad at right before, like try and learn some last minute techniques or something. Because as athletes, like we're taught to get better at things that we're bad at, but I think leading into a competition especially, it's really important to feel confident. And if I work on the things that I'm bad at, like the week before, I'm not going to feel that confident. So I tend to do the things that I feel the best at, even if they're not necessarily probably what I need to be working on. And that I think is really helpful just for like as a confidence check. And then at an actual competition, I feel like a couple things, like I get, my brain doesn't get that nervous, but my stomach gets really nervous. So I feel like I have a really hard time eating around a comp. Okay. And so having methods of like, bars and snacks for when I feel like I'm not as nervous, I can eat them so that because I always end up like sitting at dinner the night before a competition, like totally unable to eat anything. And then same thing with breakfast. And obviously you can't go into a competition having not eaten dinner or breakfast the day before. But it's like, I get too nauseous to eat too well. So having been prepared, I really like Builder bars from Cliff Bar. I think I
Okay.
don't know why, but like you start eating it and you're like, this is fine, and then like a couple seconds later it's gone. I'm like, oh, cool. Like 20
So
grams of protein, like hell yeah.
yeah, what's your favorite flavor?
I go for the mint chocolate.
Oh
It's the
man,
only
mint
one
and
I eat
chocolate.
actually.
See, like mint and chocolate shouldn't go together.
No, I'm kind of with you, but the Builder Bar, it goes down too easy. So
Really?
yeah,
Like I've tried mint chocolate and it feels like brushing your teeth and eating chocolate at the same time. Just doesn't work.
I feel that way about like peppermint patties for sure, but yeah, something about the Builder Bar is
Okay,
just
cool,
super chill.
cool. So I guess you guys, when you're in comps, you've got to wait around a lot in isolation, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. How does that feel for you, and what do you do?
Our team has like a good vibe. Like when we're traveling, like a lot of us are all friends. So and like our coach is cool. We hang out quite a bit. We're traveling together a lot. So I think having kind of comfortable or comfort people in that space is really helpful.
Yeah.
If I was just totally alone in isolation, I think that would be something else. I before USA Climbing got to be like more official like it is now, I actually made a finals in a World Cup in 2018, and
Yeah.
we didn't have any staff there, so I was just totally alone in ISO in my first World Cup final, and that was definitely a different experience than like what we have now when we have a whole team going and staff and people to support
Yeah.
you and stuff like that. So it's not so
Yeah.
bad.
What about in Tokyo? What was that like?
Tokyo was crazy because it was COVID, and we had to be like fairly isolated, and obviously you didn't want to get COVID because if you got
Yeah.
COVID you couldn't compete, and
Yeah.
you weren't an Olympian unless you competed, right? So even if you were
Yeah.
qualified and you were there, if you didn't step on the field to play, you didn't become an Olympian, and they wouldn't let you step on the field to play if you got COVID. So we were pretty isolated, but we didn't get COVID, so that's always good. All of us stayed healthy. But isolation and like the actual comp felt very similar, I thought, to like a World Cup, honestly, like a World Cup semifinal. It was all the same
Okay.
people. We were just in a very different place. And I think that's partially probably because the difference in like spectators and stuff versus Paris,
Yeah.
where we didn't have any in Tokyo. But yeah, it was really interesting. It was like very climactic in that it was like this thing we had waited now over 2 years basically to have because of COVID and having qualified so early, and like it was like all like this culmination of a bunch of effort. But in the same way, it wasn't like I wouldn't say it's anticlimactic, but like but in some ways it was just because it was like here we are at another competition. We've done this 6 times this year already, and so trying to treat it like not too overly different was kind of important.
Okay. So do you guys get to know? I guess being on the competition scene, I guess you all get to know each other quite well.
Yeah, especially like on each like individual team, but then you end up training with athletes from other countries quite a bit. Like you end up in Innsbruck together, you end up
Yeah.
at Salt Lake before the World Cup here together.
Yeah.
And there's usually when we go to these different countries with competitions, there's usually like one or two good gyms in those places. So you run into all the other teams and stuff doing their trainings before the competition. So yeah, you end up climbing with basically the whole World Cup circuit wherever you go. Especially staying with your team and eating dinner with your team and stuff like that. The team gets quite close. And then there are like countries that definitely tend to like become better friends, usually based on which language you speak. So like
Okay.
like Australians, the Brits, the US, like we always get along really well because we all speak English. Everybody speaks English, but or like
Yeah.
most people do on like World Cup
Yeah.
circuit. But like I feel like there's definitely like more camaraderie, or like among the South Americans who all speak Spanish. Like there's definitely
Yeah.
a lot of camaraderie. Same with like the areas that speak like French, German.
Yeah.
Like those all like have that same kind of camaraderie, I feel like. So
Yeah. Yeah. So is everyone like when you go to climbing gym? I guess everyone's quite supportive, and it doesn't matter what level of climber you are. If you're climbing and you're trying something really really hard, and for you personally, whether you're climbing a V1 or whether you're climbing a V15, everyone's very supportive of one another. Do you get the same feeling with on the international scene with all the competition climbers?
Yeah, I think yes. But there's also like this definitely like competitive nature, right? But
Yeah.
I don't think that's a bad thing. I think we're taught sometimes, like especially as young women, that like being competitive is bad and that you should be nice and
Right.
like like I think it's convoluted that being competitive is being like mean, which it's not. It's not at all. And I think on the World Cup circuit, it's really understood that it's not like that. Everybody's competitive, everybody wants to win, everybody wants to be the best, and there's that like mutual understanding of that between everybody. And I think that makes those sessions really cool and really interesting because, if somebody does a move, everybody's like, oh man, I want to do that move, and so there is the supportive nature. It's like, oh man, you just proved that move is possible. That's so sick. Now I want to do it. Like maybe I'm frustrated I didn't do it, but that doesn't mean that I'm mad you did. It's cool you did, but I want to do it now. So like there's like kind of a mutual understanding there, without the like kind of confusing interpersonal dynamics that you can sometimes get in like maybe a less competitive environment where people are still feeling competitive, if that makes sense.
Okay. Yeah, makes sense. Yeah. So you mentioned like being competitive as a woman is not like or was not accepted. Like I don't know. Like maybe I'm removed from society. I'm not a woman, so I don't experience it. So I guess I can't. I don't see it.
Yeah. We just had a guest on my podcast on Circle Up with Carrie Scott, and she grew up climbing with me. Like we were both on the youth circuit, and it was interesting hearing her talk about it because it was something that I definitely noticed, but haven't really talked too much about other girls about to other girls about. Where like I knew I was competitive, and I wasn't ashamed of being competitive, but did feel like other people shamed me for being competitive or like looked down
Really?
on it. Yeah, for sure. Like I remember a mock competition when I was on a youth team where they purposely made the first boulder really, really hard. And to make like impossible. They made it impossible so that they would shake our confidence before going into the next three boulders, just to like as like a a drill basically, but they didn't tell us they were doing it right.
Okay.
They made the first boulder really, really hard so that you then had to like mentally reset to get on the next boulders, which is it's a good thing to practice. Like sometimes you have a really impossibly hard round, and you won't do all the tops right. And I remember we were debriefing it after the mock round, and everyone was like, "Yeah, that totally shook me. Like I like couldn't focus the rest of the round. Like that was so bad. Like whatever." And I was like, "Oh, I just like figured that if I couldn't do it, like nobody could," which was again probably overly confident as my like 12-year-old self. But but instead of like seeing that as like a like and fostering it, I guess, because like that was maybe a little too much. Instead of like fostering it and being like, okay, how can we like harness this to make Kyra a better competitor? It was like more like, shamed, I guess, so
Really?
totally. Yeah.
Okay.
Again, though, like I said, I don't know if my
I find
coaches
that
were
weird.
the best.
I find that a really weird concept, and like I guess I'm not a woman, so I can't speak. I can't speak for women, but I think from I guess my point of view, like it doesn't matter, man or woman. Like if you're climbing or any other sport, if you are giving it 100% and trying really hard, I find that really inspirational.
Yeah. No, I 100% agree. And I hopefully think this is changing. I think especially as women's sports are getting more attention, that
Yeah.
it's more acceptable, like societally, to be a competitive woman. But I think it's kind of similar to the vein of like, when somebody like a woman who's a boss is, you know, intense, then she's called a bitch. It's different than a lot of times, I guess.
Yeah, how men are perceived, I guess
Yeah,
it's acceptable.
versus powerful. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
So
Yeah, so we need to change those societal norms. And yeah, I mean, I've got a daughter, she's 13, and like whatever she chooses to do, I'd like her to give 100% in whatever she does. And like she loves sport, and Yeah,
Yeah.
I think that the one thing that men have that women maybe don't have is, I guess, men have testosterone, which gives them that bit of aggressive advantage over women. Not saying that
Yeah.
women
I
don't have
actually talked to my sports psych about this because, yeah, you'll see groups of guys like all being competitive and then still being chummy and friends afterwards.
that.
Whereas sometimes when you have that same environment with women, things get kind of awkward and like distant between people who are competitive with each other. And
Okay.
I can't remember exactly what she said about it, but there is like a theory kind of that the fight or flight instinct in women is like slightly different, in that like we still have the same response obviously, but it makes us want to like nurture and protect, I believe is what it was, instead of fight or flight.
Yeah.
And so when you have that adrenaline rush that you get during a competition and you're competitive, it's really at odds with this like nurture and protect instinct that women tend to have.
Okay.
And so you have this like internal, like not like you're actually really thinking about it, but like it's this like little internal battle where your instinct is to nurture and protect when you're in that situation, but you're also actively trying to compete against somebody. And so it's just kind of hard to reconcile those two things.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that's what she called it. This was like now talking like 4 years ago with my sports psych, who I
I
worked with
should
at the
ask.
time. But
I'll ask Allegra. Uh, I'll ask Allegra about that because she's like a fountain of knowledge. The other person, like one of the other climbing flow coaches, she's just like incredible wealth of knowledge.
yeah,
Yeah, I'll ask her about that.
and so yeah, it's not necessarily, it's not a bad thing by any means, but it does, that's like potentially why we end up at those scenarios where like men seem to like have a good time in that situation, or a better time in that situation than women sometimes do.
Yeah, and I think as men we are outwardly competitive with one another, and I don't think we care so much about how we all perform.
Yeah.
Maybe that, I don't know. Maybe that stems back to, I guess, when we were like cavemen competing with one another for food and survival and all those things, right?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm extremely competitive, and I guess with my friends, but with myself as well.
Yeah, I'm as well. Like I mean it even in other things like board games and stuff. But I actually think that being so competitive in climbing, it's my competitive outlet, that I
Yeah.
have gotten less competitive in other aspects of my life that I used to be really competitive as a kid. And so like if I'm like I play a lot of beach volleyball as like a fun side
Okay. Cool.
activity. I'm not very good, but
Yeah,
I
but
find it
you
really
enjoy
fun.
it.
It's really
Yeah.
great, yeah. And I get so mad when somebody tries to like actually earn a point because I want the ball to stay in the air because I like the playing of volleyball. Like I really like
Okay.
playing it. I like the volleying side of volleyball.
Yeah. Yeah.
But anytime somebody spikes it just to win a point, I'm like, now the ball's on the ground. Like I want it I want it in the air. So it's like it's very uncompetitive, I feel like. When I'm
Yeah.
playing, my brain when I'm playing volleyball, and I think it's potentially just because I spend so much of my competitive energy with climbing that I like having an outlet that doesn't feel competitive. That's pure like sport fun.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. I guess. Oh yeah. I don't seem to run out of that kind of competitive
Yeah,
energy. Like I even compete with my kids.
I'm sure it leaches out in other ways for sure for me, like jigsaw puzzles.
Yeah.
I want to get the most
Yeah.
pieces in for sure of
Yeah.
anybody who's doing the jigsaw puzzle, or yeah.
Yeah. I have to be aware that I try not to compete with my kids. Yeah. I played a game of catch the flag with them in lockdown and ended up breaking part of the cartilage in my left ankle
Oh
because I
no.
wanted to make sure I got one of the kids.
My dad's the same way, so he never took it easy on us in card games and stuff like that. So I think it's
Yeah.
it's good.
I guess it helps, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
I mean it's a
Helps you
great
get.
role model. I think like to show that being competitive is can be like friendly and fun, right? Like
Of
it's not
course.
just cutthroat.
Yeah. Completely agree. Um, so how do you deal? how do you deal with a performance that hasn't gone your way in a competition?
Yeah, I think something that I'm pretty good at is like confidence. I think I have a lot of confidence, almost too much sometimes.
Nothing wrong
And
with that.
yeah, I
Never
don't
had
think
too
so
much.
either. Right. But so when the comp doesn't go my way, I think I'm really good at not using like taking that and saying like that's how good I am. Like if I were to get last in a comp, I'd be like, whoa, I don't know what happened today.
It
Like
doesn't
that.
define you.
It doesn't define me. Yeah, I think I'm really good at keeping the like my definition of myself and how I think of myself separate from results. I think I base it a lot more on like how hard I'm trying and how hard I'm working, and so I feel like I'm really disappointed if I get a bad result in a competition, if I felt like I didn't train for it as well as I could have.
Yep.
And that's like when I'm really disappointed. Like, oh, I could have and should have done more leading up to this so that I didn't have this bad result. But like I had a bad result in Innsbruck World Cup last year. It's my worst world. It was a funny year for me. I had really good results and I had like my worst one ever. And
Okay.
but I hurt my knee on the very first boulder of the round, and I was like, well, I did pretty well considering that I like was basically climbing one legged the rest of the round. And so I think I'm really good at kind of keeping those results separated from like self worth, which definitely helps with longevity in competition.
Yeah. Okay. So what happened to your knee?
Oh, I just sprained my LCL. My body hates heel hooking. I've
Yeah.
sprained both
Okay.
LCLs like 3 times each at this point.
Okay.
So
So maybe train it.
I have.
Like, okay. Yeah.
I've been like working on leg strength, like gained weight in my legs, just to try and like get stronger legs. And I think my new theory, because obviously it's been something I've been working on for a really long time and I'm still no better at it, is that I think it has something to do with my back. Like if you think about when you put a heel hook up, you
Yeah.
shift in your back
Yeah.
slash hips to like weight the heel
Yeah.
hook well. And I think specifically on these heel hooks that keep hurting my LCLs, I think I can't shift my body weight into the right position, so I end up
Yeah.
weighting my LCL instead of my hamstring.
Yeah.
But sometimes there are just those heel hooks that are like so sideways that you end up hurting yourself. Like
Yeah.
but
So is there no physio that can help you try and come up with a way of moving that would actually work for you?
I've tried. I've like I said, I've been
Yeah.
trying to train hamstrings and like cue myself to use like the bigger muscles instead of like my calf while heel hooking. But
Yeah.
it's definitely like a work in progress. I'm still working on it, and I can heel hook, but and I'm definitely much better than I was at them. I was really bad for a long time. It was a huge weakness. But
Yeah. It's not really something, I guess, working on like climbing on a panel, like overhanging 45, 60 degree panel, don't really heel hook a lot, do you?
no, and I think partially what bums me out when I do hurt my knee is that like it takes away climbing, and I don't want climbing to be taken away, and most of the time I can avoid heel hooks. So I'm really good at
Yeah.
toe hooks, like really really good at toe hooks, and I'm really good at like
Yeah.
toeing in to
Yeah.
avoid heel hooks. So
Yeah.
I tend to be able to use that when I and then I don't hurt myself. So
Yeah.
it's
Yeah, and that's another story, right? Like being injured and then not being able to climb, and like I just had a Emma Twyford, the third coach. She's just come back from Spain and injured, and I mean I've had so many injuries as well, and I'm guessing like when life and work and friendships and everything is intertwined with one activity, like it's quite hard, isn't it?
totally, yeah, like it takes away not only like my job, but like my my mental health of being able to go climb.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, so climbing is not just an activity, right? It's just,
yeah,
yeah, everything.
absolutely.
Yeah, yeah. I've been there many a times. Hopefully, touch wood, won't go there too many times again. Cool. Do you ever feel do you have an expectation when you go into a comp, and do you feel that expectation might have a effect on your climbing?
Yeah, I've tried to make my expectations separate from like the result. So like, I expect myself to train as hard as I can before the event. I expect myself to do my best in the round to like stay calm and try hard and and so those are expectations that I know I can meet if I stay focused.
Yeah.
And I think that really helps because having expectations that are tied to things outside of your control, like I have no control over how somebody else climbs. I only have control over how I climb. Somebody could have the best day of their life, and even if they're maybe not a better climber than me, they could very easily beat me in a round. And so having like my expectations like fully tied to that, I think is really can be really harmful to like mental state. And so I really try to have these like more meta expectations, but then have my goals obviously be to like win, but not achieving your goal. That's okay. You can keep working on it. But like when you don't meet your expectations, I feel like that's really disappointing. And so that's kind of been my method to, and I also try to really just keep it to my personal expectations, like not really pay attention to what I think other people expect of me.
Yeah, that's a very healthy way of looking at your performance, where you look at, I guess, giving it your all and I guess meeting your own expectations with your own performance. I think a lot of people, like I guess you mentioned, think about you can't control other people, and if you start thinking about the end goal, then that means you're not going to kind of climb fluidly.
Yeah, I think set achievable expectations, but ideally unachievable goals. Like you want something you can work towards, right? So
yeah, of course, yeah. And that unachievable goal will always be there, and then you get that, and then there will be another unachievable goal.
Yeah, and you make mini goals. Right? Yeah, you make mini goals on the way up to the big goal.
Yeah. Whatever the big goal is, and then you get to the big goal, and then there's another goal behind that.
Exactly. Yeah. My goal was qualifying for Tokyo, and then as soon as I qualified for Tokyo, I was like, oh shit! Like, what should my next goal be? Like, make finals at Tokyo? Like.
Yeah. And then the same with climbing grades, right? It's like I want to climb this grade, and then you get there, and you're like, oh, there's another one above it, and another one.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. Would you describe yourself as an obsessive climber?
Man, I am definitely obsessed with climbing, but climbing with people who I think have a much more like obsessive personality than me, I don't think so. Like if I have a project outside, like I'm not falling asleep thinking about it almost ever. Maybe because I'm excited to climb on it if I like it. Like I'll be thinking about how I'm excited about it. But if I like, fell off the last move or like something like that, it doesn't haunt me, I guess, in a way that I think I see it haunt other people. Which I think it's both healthy and also not helpful sometimes, because I think sometimes that like, it's like almost a drive that is unintentional that lets you hyper focus and like get really hard stuff done. Like I think I kind of lack that sometimes, like especially outside. Like I have to both really like the climb as well as like being like want to do it. Like if there's just a climb that I think I can do just because it's really hard, like I probably won't try and do it if I don't like it. But I think that's kind of what's cool about that side is like you can find stuff that inspires you for like many different reasons, whether it's because it's really hard, and if that's enough, then that's great. Whether it's like something that's anti-style and maybe that's exciting to you, but like maybe not that hard, like on the grade scale. Like there's all sorts of things that you can find that like are inspiring for different ways. And but I think I tend to not really obsess over it. I love going to the gym. I love training. I like think I am obsessed with training, but I don't think I obsess over it.
Yeah. And you love trying hard.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And what does that give you?
I think I love the feeling of it. I think I really enjoy when I'm trying a move. I'm like, man, I need to try harder to do that. Like I didn't try enough. I need to like bear down more. I think that's really satisfying to me.
Yeah. But it's like it's a skill, and I do think it is a skill and a trainable skill that not enough people either know how to tap into that or yeah, or lack some of that. Like, I guess if you look at some of a lot of the high end athletes, they are able to tap into like giving it 100%. And I guess when you look at a lot of people, they would like to, but struggle to know how to.
Yeah, I think it's really hard for people to try 100%. I've definitely seen that where you're getting in the way of your own progress by, oh, if you're always sending something, you're not giving it 100%, right? Like
Yeah,
you have to fall in order to figure out what that limit is.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I love getting into that kind of mindset of giving it everything you've got. It feels really rewarding. It feels really cathartic. It feels really, I don't know. Is I don't know. Is that a skill? It's probably a skill that I've learned to do over the years. Is it maybe a personality type? It's probably a mixture of both.
I think it's a both for sure. Um,
Yeah.
yeah. Did you think you had it before climbing, like before you started climbing?
I think like if I look at a lot, like I guess the first time, like I had a lot of, I was really scared as a kid, and had to battle with a lot of fear and overcoming fear. But I do remember playing football. I wasn't very good at dribbling the ball, but what I really enjoyed was playing a defender. And I'd give it 100% defending and sliding around on the pitch and tackling people. And I loved that. And I think that's my first memory of giving it 100%.
Yeah, that's cool. I think mine's probably trying to run the mile in elementary school, like, and competing with everybody in my class to like try and get the fastest mile. If I
Yeah,
had like, and that definitely was like pushing as hard as I could.
yeah,
But then, and it totally is a personality type because, I was set 8 or 9.
yeah, 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 yeah,
And there was definitely people in the class who are just finishing the mile to like finish it, not trying to
yeah,
win.
yeah. Definitely personality type
For
at the
sure.
age of 8, right?
Yeah, right. Like I hadn't discovered that yet. That was just kind of inherent.
Yeah. But I think with my climbing, that's, I guess, partly personality, but it's definitely a trainable skill. And yeah, it's to try and analyze why is it that you're not giving it 100%.
Yeah.
And and I think like speaking to you, one, you know how to do that, but two, you have an incredible level of self-awareness where you've obviously looked at yourself quite a lot at different points and are able to tune into yourself.
Yeah. And I think it's learned, right? Like I definitely didn't have that always, but something I've worked on. Uh, and I had a thought about that. The self awareness. Oh, I think sometimes people try to not try as hard as possible so that they have an out for why they didn't do something. Like I've definitely done this where, like I kind of half-ass a move after somebody else did it. And I'm like, oh, well, like I could probably do that if I tried harder, but like I'm not going to try because I don't want to like confirm that I either can or can't do that move because I saw somebody else do it and I don't want to like
And what is that?
I don't want to have the bad feeling, of having not done the move, and so I totally see people fall into that trap quite
Yeah,
often where
yeah,
it's kind of like a safety mechanism for
yeah.
themselves, like you protecting yourself from any bad feelings by being like,
What's that called?
it's like giving yourself an out, giving yourself an excuse, like, oh, I
Yeah,
didn't try as hard as I could have. Like,
fear of failure, right?
yeah, for sure.
Yeah, yeah. Because somebody else can do what you can't do.
Yeah. And I don't think I do that often, but definitely occasionally, like, especially if I'm having like, not a strong mental day.
Yeah,
There are times where I'm like, maybe half-ass a move and be like, cool, like, that's enough of that one. I know I can do that if I was having a better day. I'm not going to come back to it. And I think it can be good to recognize when you're doing that and then like maybe move on to something else,
yeah.
because it can be a bad habit to like learn.
Yeah, but you can't give it 100% all the time, right? If you give it 100% all the time, like for me personally, Like if I'm giving it 100%, like I find it physically tiring, but also emotionally tiring.
Yeah.
Like especially when I've been on long routes before, and I've given it maybe two goes and given it everything I've got. Like I'm exhausted. I need a day off, maybe physically, but also mentally.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, yeah, cool. Right. So I'm going to ask you one more question, and I'm going to let you go because I can see you yawn slightly. Um,
It's just early for me, like I said.
I know, I
I was
know.
I haven't been getting up
Appreciate you.
early at all. This isn't even early in the scheme of things, honestly. I'm
I
just
appreciate your time, and I appreciate you getting up early for
no,
me.
no, no problem.
Um, if you were to give one piece of mental advice to climbers looking to improve their mental game, what would it be?
Ooh, man, I feel like we covered some really a lot of my like main good ones. I guess I have one where I have like a thing for myself, like especially when trying things that are hard, or even if you're having like a hard day or like a hard travel day or whatever. Just like kind of giving yourself this idea that you can do anything for X minutes, X moves, whatever. It's like say you have one more set of, circuits and you have to do 50 moves. It's like I can do anything for 50 moves. Like my skin hurts maybe and my like everything feels bad, but just getting into that mental state of like I can do anything for this amount of time. It's like only one more set. Or like I can do anything for 24 hours when you're having a really miserable training travel day. I mean, it's like it'll be over in 24 hours and then I'm going to look back on this and it's going to be gone. So like I can do this
Yeah,
for this whole time. And I think that's really helped me when approaching climbs, especially that are really hard for myself. I'll give myself an actual limit. Like I'll be like especially for my back, I'll be like, okay, I can do anything for 5 minutes. I'm going to try this for 5 minutes, and I can do that. There's an end in sight. It's not like I have to try this until I do it. It's like
yeah,
I can do anything for 5 minutes. I can try it until I for 5 minutes, and I think it's a really helpful like trick to give yourself a limit so that you don't end up banging your head against a wall for forever.
yeah,
But then it also makes you feel like you can do it. So it's been a helpful
yeah,
one.
yeah. You've made a small amount of progress.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool. All right, amazing. Thanks for your time, Kyra. Sorry,
I'll get it.
I'll remember. Thanks for your time, Kyra. I'll let you get on with your day. Um, cool.
No, I
And
appreciate it.
yeah, it was really nice to chat. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Thank you, Kyra, for taking the time out to talk to us. And if you guys have any of you listeners have any subjects that you'd like us to cover or talk about, please feel free to email or send us a message on Instagram or Facebook. And hopefully you enjoy more of the podcast coming out. Thanks for listening.